The things that used to pull you in no longer do. Not because they have changed, because something in you has... The book you would have finished in a weekend sits at page 40. The show you were certain you would love hasn't been opened in a week. The hobby, the project, the interest that reliably provided relief from everything else has gone quiet in a way you cannot explain. This is not apathy. This is a beginning. If you recognize something in those specific examples, hit like, this video was made for where you are right now. Here is what the loss of interest actually is. Beneath the surface symptom that looks like depression, burnout, or the beginning of a permanent flatness, and why the interpretation most people put on it is wrong. When matter changes state, when water becomes steam, when ice becomes water, the transition does not happen for free. Energy is required. Not the energy of temperature change, but a specific additional energy called latent heat. The energy required to break the bonds of the previous state and allow the new arrangement to form. During this absorption, something interesting happens. The temperature of the substance does not rise. All the incoming energy is being used for the state change. From the outside, nothing appears to be happening. The substance is neither the old state nor the new one. It is between absorbing energy, breaking bonds, reorganizing at a level too deep to observe from the surface. This is what the loss of interest is. Not the absence of engagement with your life. The absorption of every available unit of your attention and energy into a state change that is happening below the level where your previous interests were located. The books, the hobbies, the pastimes, the things that used to reliably generate response, they belonged to the previous state. They were the interests of the arrangement that is now in transition. And in the transition, the energy that used to go toward them is being redirected inward, where the reorganization is occurring. Not lost, absorbed, not withdrawn, reassigned. Carl Jung mapped what he called the transcendent function, the psyche's capacity to generate new forms of meaning, new symbols, new directions of genuine interest from the interior. During periods when the old forms have dissolved, but the transcendent function does not operate on demand. It operates when the conditions are right, specifically, when the old forms have been released completely enough that the interior has the space and the energy to generate something genuinely new. The loss of interest in the old forms is not the failure of the function. It is the precondition for it. Jung wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity." The play instinct cannot operate while the intellect is busy managing and maintaining the old interests. It activates in the specific conditions that the loss of interest creates. The opened, directionless, apparently empty space in which something new has room to emerge. You cannot force the new interest. You can only create the conditions it requires. The loss of interest is the first condition. And this is what the withdrawal has been doing all along. There are specific ways the phase transition announces itself. The precise daily experiences that tell you the latent heat absorption has begun. If you recognize any of these, they are not signs of permanent damage. They are the substance between states. The first is your hobbies and pastimes producing no response. Not dislike, something more neutral and more disturbing, absence. You approach the thing that used to reliably generate engagement, the book genre, the game, the creative practice, the physical activity, and where the response used to be automatic, there is simply nothing, no pull, no resistance, no reaction of any kind. The activity exists. Your relationship to it has become observational rather than participatory. You can see it, you remember that it used to matter, but the current that used to run between you and it has been the energy that sustained the engagement is currently occupied elsewhere at a depth where your hobbies do not reach. The second is finding yourself unable to finish things you start, not due to the disappearance of the pull that keeps you going. You begin the book and reach the point where the initial novelty has worn off and the momentum that used to carry you through has evaporated. You start the project and sustain it past the initial enthusiasm, only to find that what comes next requires a kind of forward-leaning investment that is simply unavailable right now. You leave conversations earlier than usual, not from rudeness, but from a specific, honest exhaustion of your genuine interest in the exchange before the exchange has reached its natural conclusion. The inability to finish is the latent heat absorption. The energy that would have gone toward the completion is currently engaged in a reorganization of a different order entirely. The third is losing genuine curiosity about things that used to generate automatic questions. There was a version of you that was reliably curious about a domain, a subject, a set of questions that produced natural, self-sustaining inquiry. That curiosity is quieter now, not dead quiet. The questions do not arrive automatically. You can construct them when required, but the organic generation of genuine interest that used to produce questions without effort has slowed to a rate you can barely detect. This is not the death of your intelligence. It is the intelligence currently engaged in a question that is too deep and too interior to express as a question, reorganizing itself below the level where the old curiosities were located. The fourth is the forward pool of small pleasures disappearing. The coffee that gave the morning its first point, the anticipated episode, the planned meal, the small specific thing that used to function as a reason to reach the next part of the day. These small anchors of forward momentum have loosened, not dramatically. They simply no longer carry the pull they had. And the days without their forward anchors have a quality of horizontal sameness that is both disorienting and, if you sit with it without immediately reaching for a replacement anchor, strangely honest about what is actually happening. The old design of your days is dissolving, and the new design has not yet been given to you. But here is what no one tells you about what comes next. Here's the thing that the loss of interest will not tell you directly, because it cannot. It does not have the information yet. The interests that are coming back are not the same interests that left. They are not the upgraded version of your old engagement. They are not the return of what you lost. They are something new, something that belongs to the version of you that is forming in the phase transition, something that the previous arrangement of your life did not have room for, something that can only be discovered once the old interests have cleared enough space for it to arrive. The terror of the loss of interest period is the terror of not knowing this, of standing in the withdrawal, in the apparent emptiness, and believing that what you are seeing is the permanent contraction of your capacity for genuine engagement, that the person you were, who could be reliably interested, reliably pulled forward, reliably alive to the texture of the world, that person is gone, and what remains is a flatter, quieter, less alive version with no apparent path back to the fullness. Remember? This terror is understandable, and it is wrong about the permanence, but it is right about one thing. The person who was reliably engaged by the old interests is in the process of completing. The interests that leave belong to that version. They were genuine, real interest, real engagement, real investment, and they served the self that needed them at the time. But that self is changing. And the new self that is forming in the phase transition will find that the things that engage the previous self no longer quite fit. Not because the things change, but because the you who engages has changed. And the new engagement requires new things to engage with. Jung understood this as the work of the transcendent function, the generation from the interior of symbols and directions of interest that do not come from the intellect's deliberate choice, but from the deeper process of reorganization finding its own new forms. The new interest arrives as a noticing. Something catches your attention that did not use to catch it. A question forms that did not use to form. A direction pulls when nothing was pulling before. It arrives without announcement, without fanfare, specific and precise and undeniably yours. Here is something to do right now. Think of the last time something, anything, caught your attention unexpectedly. Not something you sought out. Not something that belongs to your old engagement. Something new that registered in you before you had time to decide whether it was appropriate for your current state. That was the new interest beginning. Small, preliminary, easily dismissed, but real. And that noticing is the first emergence of the new form. This is when everything begins to shift. You came into this video in the middle of losing something. Not a person, not a relationship, not a possession. The specific interior quality of engagement with your own life that used to make things feel worth doing. And you have been trying to understand whether this loss is temporary or permanent, whether the interest will return, or whether this flatness is the new state, whether you are going through something or arriving somewhere you do not want to stay. Here is the answer the phase transition gives. It is temporary, not because all difficult things are temporary, because the physics of the transition require it. The latent heat absorption ends when the state change is complete. But And this is the part that is easy to miss. The new state is not the old state restored. Steam is not water restored. It is water transformed into something with different properties, different capacities, different ways of moving through the world. The engagement that returns after the phase transition belongs to the new self, not the old one. It is interested in different things. It asks different questions. It finds forward pull in places that the previous self would not have thought to look. And the first encounters with these new engagements, before they have fully established themselves, may feel unfamiliar enough that you do not immediately recognize them as yours. They are yours, more yours, in fact, than the old interests were, because they were generated by the transcendent function from the interior of who you are becoming, rather than inherited from the social environment of who you were before. The loss of interest was the beginning, not of the flatness of the new arrangement. And the new arrangement is forming now in the absorption below the level where your old interests were located, in the space that they vacated when they left. What begins to grow in that space is already yours. If this is where you are right now, write in the comments, I'm between states. Let's see how many of us are in the same phase transition right now. If Noctivus is new to you, subscribe. Every video here is made for the person between the old state and the new one. The next one goes further into what forms in the space that transition creates. Don't leave before the new arrangement arrives.